Hey everyone, and welcome back. You ready to dive into another book today?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're tackling, well, I guess tackling is kind of a strong word, but we're really looking at depression.
Okay.
And we're looking at it through the lens of this book called kDepression
Oh, yeah.
by Robert Duff.
I liked this one.
Yeah.
And
It's a very direct.
I think the title itself is very direct.
It is.
Very blunt.
It is.
And I think that that's kind of refreshing
Yeah, I agree.
because it doesn't sugarcoat anything.
No, it doesn't.
It just kind of like lays it all out there.
Yeah, it just gets right to the point.
Right to the point.
And you know what I thought was good about that is it really kind of helps you figure out whether what you're experiencing is actually clinical depression
Right.
or just, a case of the blues.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we all have days where we feel down.
We do.
But when is
Yeah.
it actually something more serious? Exactly. And the book makes it really clear there's a big difference between, feeling kind of depressed
Yeah.
and actually having a major depressive disorder.
Right. And so how do you know? How do you know if it's something more serious?
Well, he lays out some specific criteria based on the DSM-5, the official manual that's used to diagnose mental health conditions. And he talks about things like, persistent sadness, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy,
Yeah.
changes in appetite or sleep,
You know.
know.
I remember when I was going through a really tough time and I completely lost my appetite.
Oh, wow.
I just wasn't interested in food at all.
Yeah.
It was really strange.
So that's a classic example of, how depression can manifest.
Yeah.
But here's the key takeaway. These symptoms need to be seriously messing with your day-to-day life
Right.
to qualify as a major depressive episode.
Okay.
So if you're struggling to get out of bed, focus at work, connect with loved ones. That's when it's time to, really pay attention.
And he gets into different types of depression too, right?
Oh, yeah.
He explains that depression isn't one size fits all.
Right.
And he actually talks about these different subtypes, like sorrowful, where you're constantly on the verge of tears.
Right. Or anxious, where your mind is racing and you feel restless all the time.
Uh-huh.
There's also apathetic, where you just feel completely numb
Yeah.
and disconnected from everything. And then there's the physically wrecked subtype.
That one really resonated with me. The book describes it as, feeling constantly exhausted, achy, and just drained of energy. It's like your body is mirroring all the emotional turmoil that's going on inside.
Yeah, it's important to remember, though, that, this isn't the same as having a physical illness.
Right.
Although sometimes the symptoms can overlap. But what sets it apart is that these physical symptoms tend to fluctuate along with your emotional state.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say you've read through these descriptions and you're like, yep, this is me. What next?
Well, that's where Duff gets into this scientifically backed approach called behavioral activation.
Okay. So what's that?
It's all about pushing yourself to engage in activities that you used to find enjoyable, even if you just don't feel like it right now.
So kind of like tricking your brain into remembering what it feels like to experience joy.
Exactly. It's like, remember that time you tried to get back into working out after weeks of indulging in pizza and Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
At first, it's a real struggle, but eventually your body starts craving those endorphins again.
Okay, I'm starting to get this. But how do you choose what activities to start with?
Because it can feel very overwhelming when you're depressed.
Yeah.
That's where Duff's practicality really shines through. He provides this super helpful formula. Reward minus difficulty equals value.
Okay.
And he encourages you to write down life activities you used to enjoy and rate them based on this formula.
Yeah.
So the higher the value, the easier it is to get started.
So like big life-changing things.
Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to pick easy wins at first. Small, manageable activities that require minimal effort, but still offer a decent reward.
Gotcha.
So think like taking a short walk,
Okay.
listening to your favorite music, calling a friend, or even just spending a few minutes doing something creative.
Okay. And the book suggests scheduling these activities, right?
Yeah.
Not just thinking about them, but actually putting them in your calendar.
Exactly. And you know what I find fascinating about this is that it ties into the bigger picture of understanding your own patterns.
Okay.
Duff suggests actually scheduling out your entire day at first, and then paying close attention to how your mood and motivation shift throughout the day.
So for example, you might notice that you have more energy in the afternoons.
Exactly.
And that's when you would schedule those activities.
Exactly.
That require a little more effort from you.
Yes, it's like becoming a scientist. of your own
Well,
experience.
I love that. So it's all about kind of like understanding the science of your own.
Yeah, and that leads us to another fascinating aspect of the book, understanding the actual science behind depression. Okay. So Duff breaks down complex brain chemistry into simple, relatable terms.
He talks about those neurotransmitters, right?
Yeah.
Like dopamine and serotonin and
Exactly. Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine.
norepinephrine. Okay.
And he explains how they play a key role in regulating our mood. But instead of getting bogged down in technical jargon, he uses this brilliant analogy of a bar.
A bar?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this bar analogy.
Okay, well, think of dopamine as the life of the party.
Okay.
The one who brings the fun and the excitement. And when you're depressed, it's like the bar has shut down and there's no dopamine flowing.
So by engaging in activities that used to bring us joy, even if it feels forced at first, we're essentially like encouraging that dopamine to start flowing again.
Precisely. You're essentially retraining your brain to experience those feel-good chemicals again.
Okay.
And Duff argues that this retraining is absolutely crucial for breaking the cycle of depression because it's not just about feeling better in the moment. It's about changing those deeper thought patterns that keep us feeling stuck.
I can see that. And that's what I'm really curious to explore further, because from personal experience, those negative thoughts can be a major roadblock.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
You know how fructose depression helps us identify and challenge those distorted ways of thinking? That can keep us feeling trapped.
I like it. Looking forward to it.
Welcome back.
Back again to fructose depression.
Yeah. And as we were just discussing, retraining our brains to experience pleasure is a huge part of fighting depression.
Yeah.
But there's this other sneaky element at play here.
Okay.
Those negative thought patterns.
Oh, tell me about it. They're so insidious.
They really are. And that's where fructose depression is so helpful. Duff doesn't shy away from calling these out, these twisted thought patterns.
Why?
He uses these really relatable examples that I think a lot of us will recognize in our own lives.
So give me an example. What kind of thought traps are we talking about here?
Okay, well, one of the most common ones is what Duff calls overgeneralization.
Overgeneralization.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that tendency to take one single negative experience and blow it up to apply to all similar situations.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
It's like you give a presentation at work and it doesn't go perfectly. Suddenly you're convinced you're just a terrible public speaker.
Right.
Full stop.
Never mind that you've given plenty of good presentations.
Right, exactly. And that's where the downward spiral starts. You start to avoid any opportunity to speak up, reinforcing that belief, and ultimately limiting your own potential.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
It is. You believe you're bad at something, so you avoid doing it.
Right.
And then that just confirms your belief.
Ugh, hate it. Okay, so what else? What other kind of thought traps?
Another big one he tackles is emotional reasoning.
Okay. And this one can be particularly sneaky because it leads us to believe that our feelings are facts. Give me an example of that one.
Think about it this way. Imagine you wake up feeling unloved.
Okay.
And insecure in your relationship. Suddenly, every little thing your partner does feels like a sign that they're pulling away.
Oh my gosh.
A harmless comment becomes a personal attack. A missed call becomes proof that they don't care.
Wow. I've totally been there. It's like your emotions are like coloring the lens through which you see the world.
Exactly. And everything just gets distorted.
Yeah.
And the more we buy into this distorted view, the deeper we sink.
Okay, so we've identified these negative thought patterns.
Right.
How do we actually break free from them?
The good news is that Duff offers a bunch of practical strategies for dealing with these thought traps. One of the simplest yet most powerful is talking it out with someone you trust.
Just venting.
It's more than just venting.
Okay.
Duff emphasizes that it's not about seeking reassurance or a pep talk. It's about getting an outside perspective.
Okay.
Someone who can gently challenge those irrational thoughts.
Right.
And help you see things from a more balanced viewpoint.
Yeah. So like a reality check from someone who isn't caught up in the same emotional headspace.
Exactly. And he offers some great advice on how to approach these conversations.
Okay.
Instead of asking, am I overreacting? Try asking, how would you see this situation?
I love that. It's all about getting a fresh perspective.
Exactly.
Sometimes it takes hearing it from someone else to realize that you're not seeing things clearly.
Yes.
What if you don't have someone to talk to at that moment, though?
Duff has a clever workaround for that, too.
Okay.
He suggests this exercise. Imagine a loved one coming to you with the same issue, struggling with the same distorted thinking. what advice would you give them?
That's such a good point. We're often much more rational and compassionate when we're giving advice to others
Well,
than we are to ourselves.
exactly.
Okay.
He also encourages journaling
Journaling.
as a way to track those thought patterns
Uh,
and become more aware of them.
I've tried journaling before, but I always get stuck on what to write. Does he have any suggestions?
Duff suggests simply writing down your thoughts and feelings as they come up, without judgment or censorship.
Just a brain dump.
Exactly. And over time, you'll start to notice recurring themes.
Okay.
Maybe you always fall into the all or nothing trap, where any minor setback feels like a catastrophic failure.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Or perhaps you tend to focus on the negative and filter out all the positive.
So once you've identified those patterns, then what?
He suggests a technique called cognitive rehearsal.
Cognitive rehearsal.
And it's basically mentally walking through potential challenges
Okay.
and planning coping mechanisms in advance.
So like a dress rehearsal for your thoughts.
Exactly. It's like having a script ready for when those negative thoughts inevitably show up.
Okay.
So you're not caught off guard. You have a strategy
Yeah.
to redirect those thoughts
Yeah.
and stay on track.
These are all great tools, but, there are times when depression can feel so overwhelming that even these strategies might not seem enough.
Absolutely. And kDepression doesn't shy away from the tough topics,
Yeah.
including suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
Duff handles this really sensitive subject with a balance of directness and compassion, emphasizing that talking about suicide is a brave step and can actually be protective.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. There's so much stigma around talking about suicide, but it's so crucial to break the silence.
Exactly. And he breaks down suicidality into 3 key components:
Yep.
ideation, intent, and means.
Okay.
So ideation is simply having thoughts of suicide,
Mm-hmm.
which is incredibly common, especially during periods of depression.
So just having those thoughts doesn't necessarily mean you're going to act on them.
Right. Intent refers to the degree to which you actually plan to act on those thoughts.
Okay.
Well, means refers to the method
Uh-huh.
that you might use.
Gotcha. So it's important to remember that having suicidal thoughts doesn't automatically mean you're at immediate risk.
Right.
But it's still important to take those thoughts seriously, right?
Absolutely. And the book clearly outlines steps to take if you're experiencing these thoughts,
Okay.
including reaching out to trusted individuals, calling hotlines, like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline,
Yeah.
or utilizing emergency services if you feel unsafe.
And he also offers advice on managing those thoughts, right?
Yes, and this is where Duff's practicality really shines. He gives concrete advice, like limiting access to potential means,
Okay.
seeking professional support, and being open with loved ones about your level of intent.
He even talks about non-suicidal self-injury, right?
Yes, he explains its potential dangers
Mm-hmm.
and suggests things like puzzle games as a temporary distraction technique to interrupt the urge.
Okay.
But ultimately, he emphasizes that professional help is crucial in navigating these complex emotions.
Yeah. And developing healthier coping mechanisms.
Exactly. And that brings us to a key aspect of recovery that we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Seeking professional help. Because depression goes beyond just managing symptoms. It's about taking a holistic approach to healing,
I like that.
encompassing not only mental and emotional well-being,
Mm-hmm.
but also physical health and social connections.
Okay.
And seeking professional help is a critical part
Yeah.
of that journey.
Right. We've covered a lot of ground
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
From understanding those sneaky thought patterns
Mm-hmm.
to retraining our brains to experience joy. But sometimes we need more than self-help strategies.
Absolutely.
Right. Sometimes we need a little extra support.
Yeah. And that's where seeking professional help comes in.
Okay. And Duff dedicates a whole chapter to this.
He does.
Really, to demystifying therapy.
Yeah.
Emphasizing that it's not a sign of weakness, but a powerful act of self-care.
It's true.
And I love that he frames it that way. Because honestly, the thought of therapy can be pretty intimidating.
It can be, yeah.
It feels like taking
Yeah.
this big vulnerable step.
I get that. But Duff breaks down the whole process in such a clear, approachable way.
Okay.
He explains the different types of therapy, how to find a therapist, even what to expect in that first session. It's like he's holding your hand through the whole thing.
So walk me through it. What kind of therapy options are there?
Well, he talks about individual therapy, of course,
Right.
where you work one-on-one with a therapist.
Uh-huh.
But he also covers couples therapy, family therapy, and even group therapy.
Wow.
And he explains the purpose and structure of each, so you could figure out which one might be the best fit for your needs.
It's like choosing the right workout class.
It is.
You wouldn't sign up for a high-intensity boot camp
Right.
if you're just getting back into exercise.
Exactly. You want to find the right fit for your needs.
And he even talks about different therapeutic approaches.
He does like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, I've heard of that. CBT?
CBT, yeah.
But I'm not really sure what it's all about.
It's basically a type of therapy that focuses on the connection between our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Okay.
So the idea is that by changing negative thought patterns, we can change how we feel and act.
That makes sense.
Right.
So if you tend to have a lot of negative self-talk,
Right.
CBT can help you challenge those thoughts.
Exactly. He also touches upon psychodynamic therapy,
Okay.
which delves a little deeper into how our past experiences might be influencing our present-day struggles.
Okay, so once you have a better understanding of the different types of therapy, how do you actually go about finding a therapist?
That's a great question, and Duff offers some really practical advice on that.
Okay.
He talks about using insurance networks,
Uh-huh.
online resources like Psychology Today, checking with your local psychological association.
Mm-hmm.
He even suggests reaching out to your doctor for referrals.
That's a good idea because doctors often have a good network of mental health professionals.
They often do. And he emphasizes the importance of considering the therapists. Theoretical orientation when making your choice.
Theoretical orientation.
All right, sounds a little intimidating,
Okay.
but it's actually quite simple.
Okay.
It basically means their framework for understanding mental health.
Okay.
So do they lean more towards CBT, psychodynamic therapy, something else?
Oh, I see. So it's like finding a personal trainer?
It is. You wouldn't choose one who specializes in marathon running if your goal is to build muscle.
Right.
You want to find a therapist whose approach aligns with your needs and goals.
Yeah. And he stresses the importance of feeling comfortable with your therapist.
He does.
Yeah.
Trust your gut feeling. Know that it's okay to seek a different therapist if it's not the right fit.
That's so reassuring because sometimes it feels like you're stuck with the first therapist you find.
I know. But you have options.
Okay, good. And he
Oh.
doesn't stop at therapy.
Well.
The book also discusses the role of medication
Yeah.
in managing depression.
He does.
And that's an important one to talk about because there's still so much stigma
There is.
around taking medication.
For mental health? Absolutely. But Duff acknowledges that medication can be a valuable tool for some people, particularly in severe cases.
Okay.
And he explains the difference between psychologists, who can provide therapy,
Right.
and psychiatrists,
Mm.
who are medical doctors.
Yeah.
And can prescribe medication.
So if you're considering medication, you need to consult with a psychiatrist.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that medication is not a magic bullet.
Okay.
It's important to
have open communication with your doctor and, approach treatment as a collaborative process.
Okay, so we've talked about those traditional approaches like therapy and medication.
Mm.
But this is where frank depression takes a really interesting turn.
Yes.
Duff introduces this idea of gamifying your recovery.
Gamifying. Yeah, I love this part. He argues that by applying the principles of game design to self-improvement, we can make it more engaging, motivating, and even fun.
Okay, I'm totally on board with making self-improvement fun. How does this work?
Well, he walks you through the steps,
Okay.
starting with personifying your depression.
So he suggests giving it a name, picturing it as a villain you need to defeat.
Oh, that's a cool idea. So like depression, you're going down.
Exactly. And then he encourages you to choose a hero name for yourself.
Okay.
Your empowered self who's going to conquer this villain.
So it's like creating a character for your own personal video game.
Yes.
I like that.
And then you set your epic goals, your final quests, and break them down into smaller, more manageable tasks, your side quests.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by this huge goal of overcoming depression, you focus on smaller, achievable steps.
Right.
Like go for a walk today.
Exactly. Or call a friend.
Okay.
And he even suggests choosing specific skills and attributes to level up, like resilience, self-compassion, or problem solving. You can even create a visual character sheet.
I love that. To track your progress and stay motivated.
It's all about making self-improvement feel less like a chore and more like an exciting adventure.
And speaking of adventure, this deep dive has been an adventure, hasn't it? Exploring all these tools and insights that Robert Duff offers in Fuck Depression.
Yeah, and if there's one key takeaway I want to leave our listeners with, the recovery is possible.
Yes.
You are stronger than you think, and there are so many resources available to support you on this journey.
I agree.
So as you continue on your path, I'll leave you with this question.
Okay.
What small side quest can you embark on today to bring you closer to your ultimate goal of feeling better. Remember, even the smallest steps forward can lead to incredible progress over time.
Keep fighting, keep learning, and keep believing in your ability to heal